Okay, if we get started. Okay, we got 10 bills today. And this is the order. 967, 968, 1007, 1009, 983, 928, 913, 923, 996, 974. Senator Edwards. 967. I would love it if you did both at the same time. 967, 968.
One of the few times this year, I got a panel.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here to speak favorably for Senate Bill 967 and 968. I'm not the expert on this, so I'm going to have my panel go over with you. We have Michael Cohen, who's the City of Cumberland's attorney, and the Mayor of Cumberland, Raymond Morris. Took him down, talk on these. The thrust of these actually are for the City of Cumberland. They've had problems over the years with a lot of blighted properties or people abandoning properties. They want to get them cleaned up. So they're looking for ways to do that. So I would say up front, I'm not sure. I'm sure our staff could check and find out. There's a lot of bills dealing with municipalities that have to affect all the municipalities in the state. We're not sure that these two do that. But if they do, we would look to amend this just to Allegheny County, which includes the City of Cumberland, to allow them to get these properties off the cleanup sheet, so to speak, so people can rehab or rebuild and make the city a lot better looking. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cohen to explain what these two do. And you see a clock up there, you got 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but if we're doing two at the same time, maybe we got 5 minutes, I don't know.
Let the mayor speak first, if that's okay.
The mayor's going to go first.
Mayor,
We understand brevity is a virtue.
How about 3 minutes and 30 seconds? We'll go down the middle.
I promise you, as I've done this before, you won't have to turn that clock on. I understand to be quick. I am Ray Morrison. I'm the mayor of Cumberland, and I appreciate you letting me come in to testify today for 967 and 968, and I'll just do one statement here for both of them. And as you all know, Cumberland used to be the second largest city in the state of Maryland, and it no longer is. And if you look all out through the Appalachian area, you will see a reduction in population, and that reduction in population has meant that that we simply now have a housing stock and more buildings than we need and that we can support, and many of these properties are being untended. There's a lot of factors that contribute to light, but the big factor is the aging housing stock and the failure for people to properly maintain their properties. And these issues are not unique to Cumberland, but we understand that if you would want to separate out Allegheny County from the rest of the state, although I did hear the mayor of Baltimore last week mention that he had 14,952 vacant properties, so I can assure you this is an issue that affects a large part of our municipalities, but we'll gladly just take this bill for Cumberland and Allegheny County. We had a study done a couple of years ago, and although our numbers aren't near what Baltimore is, we have 512 blighted properties, of which almost 450 of them are residential. And this is where it is our concern as they become blighted, because when it comes to tax sale foreclosures, an incomplete tax sale foreclosure adds to our blight. And 967 addresses these instances, because oftentimes the people do not actually take ownership of the property. And that creates a property that is actually essentially ownerless. We refer to them as zombie properties. and as long as a zombie property is above ground, it only increases the problems that we have, and we're looking for a solution to be able to figure that out, and we believe that Senate Bill 967 and 968 take us a long way in those regards. I'll turn it over to Mike now.
All right, well, there are two measures here. Both of them are in the context of tax sale foreclosure proceedings. And what we're looking to do is to enable municipalities, particularly in this instance, the city of Cumberland, a way to approach these tax sale foreclosures that have been allowed to languish and essentially have some measures where the city can take title directly rather than having to initiate its own tax sale foreclosure proceeding. The first measure, 967, addresses those cases where the foreclosing party does not take title after the final order in the case is entered. Now, at the conclusion of a tax sale foreclosure proceeding, the court issues a final order which directs the collector of taxes to convey the property to the foreclosing party. We just call it the final order. And the problem here is that there are instances where the foreclosing parties don't take title. This is a particular problem that we've seen in the cases of large-scale foreclosure certificates of sale, tax sale certificates who don't really know what the property is like. And as the case progresses, in some instances, they don't even take a look at it until after the final order has been entered or around the same time. Then once they realize what they've gotten their fingers into, they realize that it's a bad business decision to take title because you've got a property that might be subject to being rehabilitated, but it would take more money than the property is worth to do that. So it's a bad decision to take title to the property. So what happens is you have a tax sale foreclosure that's been completed, but no one's taking title. And that title can hang out there for an extended period of time. So then, ultimately the property would be sold at tax sale again. And the property could repeat itself on and on and on again. So what we proposed with this one is that if a tax sale foreclosure ends with the final order and the foreclosing party doesn't take title as they're supposed to, then the city can, or a local government can step into the shoes of the foreclosing party, take title, and then proceed with the property as though they own it. Now the difference here is that let's say that the city of Cumberland was able to purchase the property at tax sale after it had been taken out of the hands of a foreclosing party that just won't finish the case. The city would then have to start its own tax sale proceeding, and these cases do in many instances take their times to wind their way through courts. And when you consider that each time one of these cases is filed, the foreclosing party, each time a tax sale is held, the foreclosing party or the party that purchases the tax sale certificate has 2 years from the date of the sale to file a foreclosure proceeding. So you can see quickly how time passes by on these cases. And the longer that these properties are allowed to languish, the worse the condition is that they come into. And particularly when you're starting off with a property that has its challenges at the start, they don't become any less with the passage of time. And we have some instances where there's some really, really bad properties. So that's the crux of what happens with 967.
You want to comment on the other one quick?
Yes.
Make it quick.
Yes, I'm going to make it really quick. This one approaches tax sale foreclosures. This is 968. It approaches pending tax sale foreclosures before the final orders are entered. And in these cases, too, when you have a large-scale tax sale certificate purchaser, or when you have a private purchaser who earlier in a proceeding might realize that the property is just not worth taking title to, what they'll do is they'll file the suit, the tax sale foreclosure, but then they realize the property is blighted, not worth taking title to. They just stop. They abandon the case. So what you'll have is a property that's just hanging out there languishing in court because it wasn't the case wasn't pursued. So what this measure allows or enables local governments to do is to, when a case hasn't been prosecuted or hasn't been finished, within 18 months of the date that it started, local government can step in, file a petition with the court asking that the certificate of sale be transferred over to them so that they can conclude the proceedings as standing in the shoes of the original tax sale purchaser. So you can the local government can jump in, finish the case, then at the end of it, end up with the title to the property. And again, that helps expedite the process by which a local government can take title to a problem property, provided it's able to interject itself into the mix and actually be the successful purchaser at tax sale. And without going into the weeds too far, that's the crux of it.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank these gentlemen for take time out of their busy days, busy schedule to come down here. We'll just say that, as the mayor said, Cumberland, one time second largest city in the state at 50,000 people. Last census are down to 19,000 people. Senator Young sitting over there going to say something. Frederick jumped into the second largest city in the state. But this just brings out, and what they're asking here is we need a few more tools in the toolbox, which we've been asking for and fighting for over the years to help us out a little bit, to hopefully maybe stimulate things at Cumberland, which is our economic hub, particularly in the two far counties, to move up in population, maybe never get the second in the state again, but might get up in the top 5. So we thank you for all your help, and I'm sure any questions, my experts here would be happy to answer them.
Senator Young.
Well, first question is, I might have missed something, but I didn't hear the difference in the two bills.
All right, well, let me explain. Okay, start with 968, because it's chronologically, it's really the first one. So after the foreclosure case is actually filed,
Yeah.
It's abandoned.
Okay.
So while it's abandoned, or while the case has just been left there without progressing,
Yeah.
what the city or municipality or local government can do is they file a petition with the court saying, all right, these guys haven't done anything with the case, give it over to us.
Okay.
Then the other measure is the case has been concluded, or it's been completed. It takes it to the final order. And the final order is where the court states you completed the proceedings, the tax collector is to sign a deed conveying the property over to the local government, provided the local government pays the taxes that are due and the other amounts that are due. So you've got one measure that's during the course of the case, the other measure that's after the case. So that's essentially the distinction.
Okay. Was there not a bill like this passed a couple of years ago?
There have been, not like this. I mean, there have been some bills that have been passed, but we're looking to do something here which will make a direct impact on the issues that Allegheny County and the city of Cumberland are facing with these blighted properties. And this provides a pretty direct line to getting relief.
Okay. Last part's just a comment. I would prefer this be a local bill because the other municipalities haven't had a chance to see it, to know whether they want it, how it would affect them. I don't think we'd want it in Frederick, but I haven't asked them because I didn't know about it. So if it were a local bill and another jurisdiction wanted on it, they could go on. But I don't want to lay it on 160 other municipalities that might not want it.
I appreciate that, and that's just fine by us here in Allegheny County in the city of Cumberland.
So.
Okay. Any other questions? Senator McCray.
As I read the bill, it looked like it's kind of like enabling, so if a jurisdiction didn't want to do it, they're not forced to do it, right?
I think it kind of, I don't think that that's really the way that this would be read if it's put into the books, unless it was limited to Allegheny County. I mean, sorry, not even if it's limited to Allegheny County, because it's really, it would be part of the structure of a tax sale foreclosure proceeding. So if a local government, well, if a local government wanted to avail itself of the remedies that are set forth, it could. It doesn't have to, but it can. However, everywhere in the state, if it's not limited to Allegheny County, a municipality or a county would be able to avail themselves of this remedy. So it's not just enabling, it actually fits right in that statutory framework.
Let me shorten that up for you. It's a tool in the toolbox. If another municipality doesn't want to use it, They don't have to. It's just something they would be able to use if they chose to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
He's better at being brief than I am.
Senator Jackson?
Yes, I've had the pleasure of coming to Cumberland a number of times. So how is the Krabby Pig?
Krabby Pig is doing well. You need, but if you haven't been up since the 1309 and came online for the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, please come up. And if you want your Polar Express tickets, you better be getting them now because they're selling out fast.
And the brewery.
Oh, and
It's
we
great.
got it,
It's
we got
great.
it dig
It's
deep
great.
right downtown, It's right next to the
I'm too young
Krabby.
to drink.
Right
but
next to the
I got
Krabby
you.
Pig.
I got you.
And then
Thank
there's
you,
also
Jay.
Mise en Place Restaurant, which is brand new, and it's about
Okay.
as good a restaurant as you'll find.
That's where the
Tourism,
that's where
I
the
know-
lawyers
I know-
Tourism,
I know we
tourism,
need
all
to help
right,
with
cool.
tourism. Senator
you.
Young?
Just one quick question. Once the city has it, what are you going to do with it?
Our first measure is going to be to clean up some of these pending foreclosures that we have that haven't been completed, and we've got a number of them that I can put my finger on if I just have my computer here.
But once you have it, what are you going to do with it?
We're going to use it.
No, I think he means, what am I gonna do with the property?
Yes.
Oh.
And each one is its own case. Some of them are rehabitable, some of them aren't, some of them have to be demoed. So when we have various programs around our community development program, by which we can sell the lots or sell the houses as rehab. So there's a couple different programs we've got in place that we can use that we're
So
using.
you think you'd have the funds to handle it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And really, the vast majority of these properties will be demoed because they have been allowed to languish in court.
Okay, very good. We have another panel that's unfavorable. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Ari Plott and Frank Boston.
We're good. We're good.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, esteemed members of the committee. My name is Ari Plout from Boston Plout Law, here on behalf of the Kenny Law Group and the Maryland Tax Sale Participants Association in opposition to the bill as drafted to both SB 967 and 968. We're both a law firm and also an association of community investors, attorneys, and business owners. We work collaboratively with counties and municipalities in tax collection. I believe we submitted written testimony that you should have in your possession. Want to thank Senator Edwards and Mr. Attorney Cohen from Cumberland for meeting with us to discuss some of our concerns we have with the bill. We would say that if this issue is specific to Allegheny County, we would urge the committee to adopt the amendments that would address the concerns of Allegheny County, and just limit it to specifically to Allegheny County. And we believe that this would alleviate some of the concerns that we have. We understand Senator Edwards' intent in targeting blighted and vacant homes, but we believe that the bill as drafted would apply to a wide array of properties. And this would limit the tax lien holder's ability to finish a case. And there may be a wide array of reasons why there may be delays varying from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And with that, the committee, I just would ask that you adopt the amendments to make it specific to Allegheny County, and thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Frank Boston III. I'm here on behalf of the Kenny Law Group and Maryland Taxpayers Participants Association. I'm not going to be repetitive of what Mr. Plout has already told you, but I will say that I just want to put in the record, we did meet with Senator Edwards, and we met with the council, Mr. Cohen, regarding these bills yesterday, and we will withdraw our position if they make this specific to Allegheny County only. There's lots of complications in the law. Let's say, just take Baltimore City in terms of, as a jurisdictions, they have a lot of these procedures already in place. They have a tax sale task force that is meeting as we speak to deal with similar issues. So, so as not to interrupt Baltimore City and other jurisdictions, as long as this is county specific to Allegheny, we have no opposition.
Thank you very much. Questions? Yes.
Could you briefly describe the problems? I mean, you say you have problems, therefore limited to Allegheny County, but I'm not clear what the problems are with the bills.
Yeah, well, so for example, you could take them both together. You know, these bills deal with the right to take the property back, that allows the county to take the, I guess, vacant and blighted properties back
Right.
if the purchaser doesn't do anything with them.
Right.
The one difference is the timeline to redeem properties is a lot shorter, for example, in Allegheny than it is in Baltimore City. Baltimore City, I don't know, 5 years ago, went from 4 months to 4 months to 7 months. And then on the back end, 9 months to start the actual foreclosure proceedings, which is different, for example, than here. So with the timelines being different, and with all of the other issues such as water, for example, in Baltimore City being different in terms of complicating the actual foreclosure process. And in those cases, sometimes the value of the property is exceeded by the liens on the property. And when that happens, there's, for example, in Baltimore, there's negotiations where they can be reduced by the municipality so that the property is still appealing and marketable to the tax sale purchaser. Allegheny County may not have those same timelines and procedures in place that are in Baltimore City. They may not have the same water issues that are in Baltimore City. For example, in Baltimore City, you can withdraw the property if it's less than $1,500 and subject to a water bill is the only reason why it was placed in the tax sale. If that's the case, you can withdraw it. So there's different mechanisms in different counties, specifically in Baltimore City, where this wouldn't be a good fit.
I didn't understand that, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, the long and short of it is they have different timelines, and so a purchaser of property may need more time, or a court in Baltimore City may give additional time because of the additional issues associated with Baltimore City's law.
My impression, I don't know this area very well at all, but we have a few of these properties in College Park. I'm sure there are properties like this all over the state. I mean, they're extreme cases, but
Yeah.
I thought the basic idea was to try to get the property in more productive use faster instead of slower. And the problem that they have, and I'm not going to speak to Baltimore because I'm not familiar with it, but my impression is that the whole system right now moves very, very slowly. And they're trying to break through that, which seems to me like basically a very good idea. And I'm not clear as to why it's not a good idea for every place.
No, so that concept and principle is a great idea. You want to always get vacant and blighted properties
Right.
off of the books. But I would profit to you that where there's a market of tax sale participants and purchasers and investors, they do the same thing at their own expense and not the expense of the municipality. So, for example, under this bill, it allows Allegheny County, who may have the funds and the wherewithal, to pull these properties back and redevelop them themselves. In Baltimore, the market is I don't know Allegheny's.
They're different markets. All the markets are different.
Yeah.
I agree.
But in other markets, such as Baltimore, I would say, the investors, write the check, give the city the cash so they can go on with their budget. They go out and collect, and most properties are redeemed. But in those properties that aren't vacant and abandoned, the investors also fix up the properties and
No,
make
I
them up
understand that.
at the expense of themselves,
I understand.
not the municipality.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Senator Salling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The follow-through also with Senator, Vice Chair, we do have similar problems in Baltimore County, as you probably know.
Right.
And from what I'm hearing from you, Mr. Boston, you were saying that possibly with amendments, that it would be, and I thank you for working with the senator.
Yep.
But with those amendments, they could be more workable. Mr. Pont, is the same thing with you? You're saying that possibly with amendments, that it could work and you could work this out also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but the amendment here is to make it apply to Allegheny County at this
Exactly.
point in time. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank
But
you.
if that amendment happens, then we're good.
Well, I like that you had the opportunity, as my door is always open, to working with the senator.
Yes,
That's what
absolutely.
it's all about, trying to get something done together.
Yes,
I want
sir.
to thank you for that. Thank you,
Yep,
Mr.
and
Chair.
thank you for the question, Senator.
Thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That concludes the hearing on this bill. Next up, 1007. Mr. Hogan and Samantha Norris. Standard bill we do all the time.
Slightly different this year, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, tell us how it's tricky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Patrick Hogan, the University System of Maryland. We do have this similar bill every single year, and it's typically passed through, and we certainly appreciate your support. SB 1007 this year, just as in prior years, it authorizes the use of bonds for the USM for capital projects across the system. But this year, it also increases our debt capacity for the USM. And so to talk about that, I'm going to turn it over to Samantha Norris, who is our debt expert, just to talk about the reasoning behind that and why we think it's important to do that this year.
Thanks, Patrick. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Samantha Norris, and I'm the debt manager of the University System of Maryland. This year, we are asking to increase our debt capacity from $1.4 billion to $1.7 billion. There are a couple of reasons that we're doing that. The last time we increased our debt capacity was in 2011, and every year we issue approximately $115 million in bonds and pay off approximately $100 million. So as we progress, it's an increase of about $15 million a year as the interest rates have gone down. These numbers have changed slightly. However, the big change that is prompting this currently is that there is an accounting standards change, which is now changing the way leases are handled, which will add them all to our balance sheet, which means from a system-wide standpoint, we're looking at approximately $120 to $115 million of leases that will now be added to our debt. This isn't because of a change in the way the leases are structured. This is just because of the accounting standards, which then really crunches our ability to issue new debt, to continue moving forward with existing projects, and to make future capital improvements that are necessary to maintain the status of the system as one of the leading higher education institutions in the country. So that is why we're asking for that. And we ask that the committee support the bill with a favorable report. Thank you.
Was I hearing your numbers right? You said you're going up 300 million,
Yes.
and your leases are 120 million?
120 to 150, they're still determining system-wide what the actual impact of that will be. The reason we're going up a little bit higher than that is because of the slight increase that we experience every year. We would have come to ask this in a couple of years anyways, just that we have the flexibility to continue issuing debt. And then also because as the pandemic made obvious, we needed a little bit of flexibility to transfer, to convert cash-funded projects to debt-funded projects, which we did in 2020, just to maintain reserves for operations.
Can you remind the committee what covers the debt payments?
It's tuition and fees. It's from our self-support.
Senator?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is the term on the leases that puts it under this rule?
All leases under accounting standards are being converted. They're just going to be considered leases. There are no longer going to be capital or operating leases. So if there is a lease, period, it will now be on our balance sheet.
Like for a month?
That might be considered immaterial, but a Xerox machine that we used to pay as monthly operating expenses can now be lumped together and added to our balance sheet.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, how much do you have in leases? 100
We're
million or something?
estimating approximately 120 to 150.
So what are the big categories of leases? What are they actually leasing?
Buildings on a lesser, that would be a capital lease, but, office equipment in some
So the big ones would be buildings and equipment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Klossmeyer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to all of my friends. I think they're all friends here. on the,
Every last
on
one
the
of us.
Budget and Tax Committee.
Yeah, all of
They're all
us.
smiling and the sun is shining, and this is a great bill that you're going to hear. I guarantee. Senate Bill 983, Property Tax Credit, Disabled Law Enforcement Officers and Rescue Workers, Federal Police, and Criminal Investigators. Senate Bill 983 is simple, enabling legislation to expand an already existing tax credit to disabled federal officers. Many counties offer state law enforcement officers and rescue workers who have a disabled property tax credit. This credit is essential to them as some individuals are forced to live on a fixed income due to their injuries, and this bill would help them to relieve the financial burden for them and their families. This benefit is only available to state agents and not federal agents who are living in the state at the time they were declared as disabled or any time within the five years prior. This bill will expand the eligibility of the credit to include federal police officers, detectives, and criminal investigators. This includes federal officers from the National Institute of Health, Department of Defense, Federal Bureau of Investigation, U.S. Postal Service, U.S. Capitol Police, and several other federal agencies. Last year, on January 6th, many of us watched in horror as the violence unfolded in the U.S. Capitol. The only thing that stopped these violent actors from reaching elected officials and their staff was the historic actions taken by our Capitol Police officers and Metropolitan Police. Unfortunately, under current law, counties would not be able to extend this tax credit to these brave men and women who protected our democracy on that day. Every day we benefit from the actions of these brave individuals, and it is important to showcase our appreciation and support by extending this credit. And I want to thank the committee for their consideration of this bill, and I am requesting a favorable report. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, committee, for hearing me. For the record, my name is Mark Cicero, and I am a disabled federal agent living in Maryland. I grew up in Cape St. Clair and attended St. Mary's for 12 years. Upon graduation from college and graduate school, I started working for the U.S. government in various positions, moving my way up from a quality assurance specialist, contract specialist, and finally a federal agent. I was injured on February 2nd, 2010 in the line of duty and required 3 back surgeries over the period of 2 years to try to eliminate the pain. While these surgeries were mildly successful, I still had pain and was labeled disabled and unable to work. I eventually made my way back home to get the support of family after getting divorced and getting primary custody of my son. Since my return to Maryland, I have been active in many volunteer activities to include Friends of the Lighthouse Board, Wellness House, Cub Scouts, etc. While hearing of other states having laws on the books that allow disabled law enforcement to be exempt from county property tax, I was surprised that while Maryland does allow for local and county law enforcement to be exempt from county property tax, it does not allow this for federal agents. While military retirees with disability are able to start a new career and their salary would just supplement their retirement or their disability, federal agents are quite opposite. Once a federal agent is labeled disabled, we are given a portion of our salary when we were working. For example, if an agent was making $50,000 while working, we now make $37,500. If we were able to get clearance from a doctor to start working in any field, we would get that amount deducted from our salary for the rest of our lives, regardless if we continued in that job or not. Again, if I wanted to work as a substitute teacher in my son's school with a low-impact job and say I made $7,500 a year, then I would make $30,000 a year from the federal government, even if I decided not to work anymore, due to my pain or availability, because I have proven to the government that I can make $7,500 a year. Due to our geographic location, Maryland is home to many federal agents who have been injured in the line of duty like myself. This tax benefit would provide financial relief for those that have been injured while serving our country. For these reasons and the fact that these men and women have put their lives at risk, just like local law enforcement, I believe we should receive the same benefits and tax breaks they are entitled to in Maryland.
Very good, thank you. Senator Young?
Just a curiosity question. A criminal investigator, I would assume that's a police officer. Are they something different?
It's labeled as federal agent, so FBI, Secret Service, DEA. The correct title is like criminal investigator. Like I, for instance, worked for Army CID.
Okay, they don't fall under police officer category.
No, so I believe it's there's a Maryland law that states all the public officers that are entitled under this,
Yeah.
and there are no federal agents that are under that.
Okay.
Senator Alfred?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Mr. Cicero. We actually met in his volunteer work for the Lighthouse and then for the Boy Scouts. He's an incredible member of our community, and obviously we want to keep him in Maryland, and I just appreciate him coming today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we've got Kevin Canale. Oh, there he is.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It always is. Always is.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kevin Canale here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties. You have our written testimony submitted support with amendment. We support the bill. We just wanted to make sure it was enabling. There was some quirky language in the bill, but that's all been resolved from where we sit. So we'd ask for a favorable report. We know you're looking at a lot of these bills, but we'd appreciate if it is indeed enabling and stays that way.
Right. Well, yep, thank you very much. We'll be having this on the work group, and it looks like a good one now. Okay. That's that. Go ahead, Senator Zucker.
Do you mind if I do it from here? Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First, Senator King and I just wanted to extend well wishes to the members of Leadership Montgomery that are viewing this very exciting hearing today. So welcome. Second is, for the record, Senator Craig Zucker here to present Senate Bill 1009. Mr. Chair, colleagues, it's customary, I think, for the Capital Budget Subcommittee Chair to present the prior authorizations of state debt alterations. This is just, if there's any capital projects that were funded in previous years that have a grantee change name, extension, it goes in this legislation. So this is the vehicle for that. And would ask for a favorable report after we amend it to make sure that it's in the right posture. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, on to the next bill, mine. 928, if the folks want to come forward, Chanel Compton, Lindsay Baker, Ellie Cowan. Anybody wants to talk about it. This is a mandate for this program, and I'll let them explain it all, but the bottom line is that the governor's already included for this year the $500,000 that we'd like to keep going onward. Everybody, you all know what the Humanities Council is about. They do great work and engaging citizens all across our state.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Gazzoni and esteemed members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Lindsay Baker. I'm the Executive Director for Maryland Humanities. Most of you met with me on Zoom, and Aaron Heinzman, my Director of Advancement. And we mentioned this bill then, so I'm going to keep this brief, and I know you all are short on time. So we are here to talk about Senate Bill 928. I hope you have the opportunity to review our written testimony. We had over 34 letters of support for this bill. And this bill represents a significant increase in investment from the state and grant funds available for humanities organizations. If passed, this bill will allow us to reach a level of grant making that represents a 240% increase in funding over what has been available to humanities-focused nonprofits through our traditional project-focused program over the last 5 years. We recognize this is a big change, and we're up for the challenge. We know how to get this money around the state. We've been doing it for almost 50 years. And during the pandemic, we had the opportunity to distribute more than $1.4 million in COVID relief funds to organizations in every county and Baltimore City. So we know we have the network and the capacity to make this increase work. The lessons we learned during COVID, along with the general understanding that general operating support strengthens the field of nonprofits in ways that programmatic grants have never been able to do, drives our shift to provide equitable general operating support around the state. I was going to read you some excerpts from the letters, but I'll leave that. And I will just say that we had a little confusion, but Chanel Compton, the director of the African American Commission for History and Culture, is on her way here. And she submitted written testimony and said, skip to her last paragraph, it's the most interesting one. And with that, I'll close and just say, I really hope you all have the opportunity to support this bill moving forward.
Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon, Ellie Cowan from Preservation, Maryland, here in support of SB 928. I know that you all are making some pretty heavy budget decisions and would encourage you to support this one. Operating support for nonprofits, especially humanities, history, cultural nonprofits, is essential, but hard to come by. And so these grants would represent sometimes, whether organizations that tell the full history of Maryland in every county in the state, whether they're able to continue their work in supporting their communities. As Lindsay mentioned, Maryland Humanities has a long track record of being able to activate the money that they do have, get that out into the communities, and get it to work. So we believe that this continuing this funding would have a great benefit to all of your districts, the entire state. And it's not just altruistic. Tourism is a huge industry in Maryland, and heritage tourists who come to see our, art organizations, history museums, cultural museums, they stay longer and spend more. So tourism brings in over $2.3 billion, or at least before COVID it did, to our in state and local taxes. So investing in these organizations also brings a return to the state. So we encourage a favorable report of SB 928. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
See you. Senator Bailey. Southerly Plantation Operating Grant.
How are you, Mr. Chairman?
You can bring up folks if you got
Can
them.
I bring up my panel?
You bet.
Okay, please, ladies. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and the other distinguished members of the committee. Senator Bailey for the record, District 29, St. Mary's in Calvert County. I'm here today to introduce to you Senate Bill 913, which is the operating grant for Southerly Plantation. This bill will provide an operating grant of $500,000 to Historic Southerly, which is located in St. Mary's County, in each of the next 3 years. You have my written testimony in your bill file. I'd like to introduce to you my panel, Nancy Easterling, Jan Briscoe, and Gwen Bankins. These ladies will tell you about the great work of Historic Southerly and why this operating funding is needed. I'm submitting an amendment with the bill that corrects references to Historic Southerly in the bill. I respectfully request a favorable report with amendments to Senate Bill 913. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. How much you say it was again, the amount? 500 annual?
For 3 years.
3 years. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to come testify today. My name is Nancy Easterling, and I serve as the Executive Director of Historic Southerly. I know there are incredible historical assets throughout the state, undisputable, but Historic Southerly is rare and it's unique. And it's because we interpret 300 years of our shared history, but do it honestly, inclusively, to include even the interpretation of slavery that happened on that site for 164 years. We do it through all of our programming, the thousands of students that come every year to our heritage tourism. We started unique programming such as our Descendants Project with over 200 self-identified descendants from all aspects of our past who are part of our programming, such as Common Ground, which brings people together for honest conversations and dialogue to lead to healing. We have made incredible advances in recent years, but we've done it on a shoestring budget with no endowment. We have to earn everything every year. And the state has helped us with so much, but there is so much work to do. And this site and our descendants and our community are really working to promote equity on so many fronts, even food equity. We have a Growing for Good program where we donate food every year to our food pantries. 90,000 in the last 8 years have gone to our food pantries, and we get the community involved with it. There's so much work to do, and this bill will allow us to do needed infrastructure changes that will allow us to be more efficient and more effective. Right now, we have a lot of duct tape and zip ties. I'm not joking. That's what we make do with. But we're going to make some wonderful things happen for our preservation projects, but also for exhibits and interpretive advancements and programs we have planned for our community. Your investment at this critical time, because it has been such a difficult past few years with the pandemic, is going to allow us to really serve our community more, and your investment is going to be investment in the work we're doing. We're providing a model to those in our, not only state, but nationwide. And what I'd like to pass on to Jen Briscoe and Gwen Bankins, they are not only board members, but descendants of Sotterly.
Hello, I'm Jan Briscoe. I am president of the Board of Trustees of Historic Sotterly, and I am honored to be here today and appreciate very much your time. Many decades ago, as a matter of fact, my father, John Hanson Briscoe, while he was Speaker of the Maryland House across the street, met my friend Gwen's cousin, Agnes Kane Callum, a genealogist from Baltimore. And she told my dad a lot about his history as a descendant of owner of historic Sotterly Plantation. And Agnes happened to be the descendant of an enslaved during the time of the Briscoe ownership. They joined forces together as board members and friends to advocate for preserving this very unique National Historic Landmark. And today, as I say, I am proud to step into his shoes as a descendant and serve with Agnes's cousin, Gwen. And there are others on our board that are also descendants. And we do believe that there is simply no substitute for coming to a site like Sotterly with 90 acres of property and 20 historic structures that are authentic, older than Mount Vernon, older than Williamsburg, and children that come learn about our history. And they also see that we can constructively and honestly tell all of the stories that are a part of all of our common history. And I can assure you, as president of this board, that we would use these funds very, very responsibly, because we take very seriously our stewardship responsibilities to the public. And we are, again, very appreciative. And we feel that in this turbulent time, our example to the world and to everyone in it of how we can work together in spite of our differences, in spite of our past, to work together for a better future. So I thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak before you about Historic Sotterly. I am a descendant. I'm also an executive officer on the board and also the chairperson of Preservation, Restoration, and Interpretation at Historic Sotterly. My journey began 44 years ago with Sotterly Plantation as a 7th grader, and at that time there was no history for me. You know, my cousin Agnes found the doors of the slave cabin locked with a "do not enter." And as I think about the history books and think about the absence of a story, I had a lot of anger when I went to the plantation, but I still went. And through a journey of education, when I was in college at Salisbury, and sitting with Agnes as she shared stories of my family's history with individuals who didn't look like me, who were excited to learn about me. We can't erase history, but we also shouldn't hide it. We must be transparent to share the story so individuals can take ownership. I did not have a passion for Sodderly, but now I do have a deep passion, because when you get to share history that's not written, but is soon to be forgotten if we don't share it and capture it, I'm honored to have great aunts and uncles who shared history with me and shared what it was like to grow up during the times of segregation, because we can pass that on. You must understand your history in order to invest in it and take ownership of it. Jan and I and her dad, I knew each other before I found out that their family owned my ancestors as property, her family. So for me, we had to have a conversation. We weren't there, but we were able to build a bridge of understanding and were able to move forward and bring about healing. That is one of the unique things about our descendants at Historic Sodderly, whether they're from the slave holders or the enslaved population or the indentured servants. We're able to work through the differences and the difficulties of the not pleasant history. We make them comfortable with what's uncomfortable in order to bring about understanding of each other's culture and bring about healing in our community. I thank you for your support as we continue to honor, reflect, and remember those who came before us and give them the voice that was once taken from them. I ask for a favorable report of Senate Bill 913.
Thank you very much. Really compelling testimony. We appreciate you coming in. I've been down to the plantation before, years ago.
You need to come back.
Yeah. What was didn't they do a movie down there too?
Yes.
What was that movie years ago?
The
Prince
choice?
Among Slaves was one of the movies that came down there, and we're actually going to be creating another video that's coming up. We actually are part of the Legacy Museum. They came up and shot part of their introductory video up at Sodderly. So we sneak up all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. Senator Zucker?
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for your testimony. Senator Bailey, thank you for bringing this bill forward. Just had a question that I know you'll be able to answer. So I'm reading just the subject line of it, and it looks like it says operating grant, but some of the things in it, it talks about design, construction, repair, renovation. So that's like bricks and mortar funding. So is it a mixture that you need? I'm just trying to get a good sense of the lay of the land. So is it both operating and capital that you need?
That's correct. I mean, you never know what's going to be breaking when you run a historic site. So it allows us to not only handle critical operating expenses, being able to expand some of what we're doing as well, but it is going to allow us to leverage some funds. So sometimes we can get a grant, but we don't have matching funds for it, or we need a certain amount. So this will allow us to leverage funds to get other, because sometimes the restoration projects are very expensive. We also have certain infrastructure needs as far as trying to take care of things that are just really falling apart, to be able to things like solar. We're looking at solar power and some other things that can save us money down the road. But again, we need sometimes money to go in and invest part of it at least to get other funds coming in. So this is going to go across a lot of different platforms, but allows us the flexibility to get on the opportunities that are going to be the best for us.
Senator, can you and I just touch base quickly after this? I just want to get a lay of the land on something.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you, sir.
Senator Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Bailey. And ladies, great to see you again. Prior to session, Senator Griffith and I were invited down to this gem of a property in Southern Maryland. It's truly Southern Maryland down there. But as a person who represents 3 of the southern counties, I think Southern Prince George is still southern. And I think this is a terrific site. And I believe that your relationship with our school system and our communities is an asset to Maryland. You know, Maryland is not unlike the United States in having its, with a storied history, but that history is something that makes us rich as long as we learn from it. So I enjoy what you do at your facility. The time we spent down at the facility not too long ago was terrific. Look forward to visiting you in the future. So great to see you ladies again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You as well, Senator Bailey.
Senator Young.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions, and Senator took one of them already. But who owns the property? How have you been funding it in the past? And I think it's something that the Senator will be looking at with Senator Bailey, but how much of the 500,000 is actually operating and how much is capital? You might not have that answer now, but I think that's important.
So the last owner died in 1996, and she left to the site, to the foundation that she had created, which is now Historic Sotterly. So Historic Sotterly, the foundation, of which we have two of our board members here, owns the property. It was left without endowment, however. So it has been on us to earn the money every year to do everything. And whether it's fixing something that breaks, and when we're talking capital, this isn't going to be large capital, big capital projects probably. That we're talking about capital like, you've got something that's breaking that needs fixing. You can get on it rather than taking out a loan or doing something else to be able to handle some of the infrastructure needs that are needed. So we have to earn everything every year, and that's been our model for quite some time at Sotterly.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Terrific. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Senator Jennings?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the committee. For the record, Senator J.B. Jennings for Senate Bill 974. This is a very simple bill. It's kind of a unique situation I'm dealing with in my district with regards to a homeowner, and we're trying to rectify it through this legislation. We've been working with DNR for several years, and this is kind of where we've gotten to with DNR to be able to get this taken care of. State of Maryland owns a lot of property through DNR and other different programs or agencies. Once in a while, somebody builds something they don't realize is on state property. In this situation, this is what happened. Over 40 years ago, a shed was built touching a piece of DNR property. And the property's changed hands over the years. Nobody realized it until a survey was done. And the homeowner's been trying to work with the state to swap land. DNR wants to. They'd like to, because this is actually a 2-to-1 swap where the homeowner's giving up basically 0.17 acres. I'm sorry, they're getting 0.17 acres from the state. In exchange, they're giving up almost 0.3 acres back to the state. So it's kind of a win for the state. The bill was very narrowly drafted to deal with this. And as you can see, if you read into it, basically, if this happens in the future for DNR, it has to be a piece of property that's equal or larger in size than the property owned by DNR, meaning DNR gets the bigger chunk. It must be adjacent to the property that DNR owns, and it must be valued less than $100,000. I've worked with DNR. They have an amendment. I don't know if it's been given to you yet, but I can provide them. These are DNR amendments, which they're asked for on this piece of legislation. So that is the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, thank you, Senator. Senator Rosapep?
Yeah, thank you. I get the basic problem. I had a bigger version of this in my district where the 16th hole of a golf course in a golf course community was built on what they later found out was right-of-way to build the ICC. And so my question is, because you've learned a lot more about this than I do, so does this bill set up a process with DNR going forward? And when there is no process now, or I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, I think if you remember a couple years ago, we had a issue with the state, with DNR, I think in southern Maryland, giving up property or selling it, and I think we came up with a constitutional amendment, how to deal with that. This is kind of coming much lower, again, setting up a process for a property under $100,000, valued at under $100,000.
And it would just apply to DNR?
Yes, this is strictly a DNR piece of legislation.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
DNR owned land.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Thank you, Senator.
No problem. And does your council have the amendment, or do they need me to?
Why don't you just hand it to Senator Stallings right now? Our council's working on the budget right now.
Council solid. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Patterson. You can do either one, whatever one you want, or both.
Take one at a time. Okay, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair, members of Budget and Taxation, thank you very much for this opportunity to introduce, first of all, Senate Bill 923, I think I'll go with first.
Okay.
Okay. Senate Bill 923 is seeking an increase in local impact grant funds that may have been allocated through the local impact funds down in 26 to help with some capital projects, stormwater runoff and sidewalks, and a few other things that they have a great need to improve and replace. Forest Heights is within 1 mile of the great MGM down there, and they're having to toy with noise, traffic, of course. It's a little better than perhaps 2 or 3 years ago, and some other activities that take place at that location. We also want to recognize that we do benefit quite a bit from MGM in the distribution of funds primarily with our schools, and we have what we call local impact fund for the community. But this would be a project that would be geared specifically to capital improvement. But not asking for much here. I think they're seeking approximately $135,000 to help with stormwater runoff and sidewalk. They live sort of, most of the community is downhill, so the water comes right in off the main drive, right down to the small community, and it is getting to be almost not possible to live in certain places in that particular area. So I am here today to ask you to take a look at the grants under Section 91A-27 to determine if perhaps some additional funds could be allocated to Forest Heights for the purpose so mentioned. And I'm extremely pleased to have with me newly elected mayor for the Forest Heights area, Mayor Calvin Washington, who's going to speak for a few minutes and entertain any questions that you might have as well. With that, we ask for a favorable response. And
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Mayor Calvin Washington, and I'm here on behalf of the town of Forest Heights to request a favorable report on Senate Bill 923. Forest Heights is a small town with a population of approximately 2,600 residents located within Prince George's County. We are a community bisected by State Highway 210 and located near Washington, D.C. line on our northern border and aligned with the Capital Beltway Interstate 495 within our southern border. And we are proud that Forest Heights is a very ethnically and diverse community. Our support for Senate Bill 923 stems from our mission to constantly identify resources needed to proactively address issues we see as critical to the town of Forest Heights. Although we, like other towns and cities, have recently received funding and revenue assistance from programs related to COVID-19, our primary challenges relate to our town tax base remain unchanged. From a budgetary standpoint, we are a municipality with an approximate $8 million annual budget. We strive every day to provide essential services to our residents, as well as crucial infrastructure, repair, and improvements. However, with a significant elderly population, our limited commercial tax base, and a location so close to a large casino and the Washington, D.C. border, we do have our challenges. The local impact funding we have received over the years has gone a long way in helping public safety and infrastructure of our community. To date, we've used this funding on several projects, including implementing 24-hour patrol coverage for our police force. We have also addressed critical stormwater management and repair projects in the town. And while these projects represent a great start, we still have a ways to go. As we emerge from the pandemic, The state has repeatedly posted record months of revenue for the casinos, and MGM has also opened their retail sportsbook platform. While the increased traffic to the casino has benefited the tourism market of Prince George's County and the tax base of Maryland, there has been wear and tear on the town of Forest Heights. We need the resources to manage the increased business and patronage so that Forest Heights may grow in step with the casino. We look forward to working with the state as the town grows. I thank you for your dedication to the state of Maryland, and we respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 923. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Patterson, for bringing this bill before us. While a member of the House, I was, along with one of your delegates, Delegate Turner, and former Delegate Tawana Gaines, we helped to shepherd the first impact monies for Forest Heights to get us to this 120,000. I thought it was pretty shameful that a municipality that's within that proximity of MGM had not been included. My question is, and I was happy to be a part of that. My question is, so we're looking at more than doubling the amount, and for the impact funding, but you also mentioned a number of capital projects that. Can you talk about any other efforts that you made to try to address those projects in addition to this particular bill? And that was for the mayor as well. So.
Oh, okay.
Well, good afternoon, sir. Currently, Forest Heights, we are an older municipality. We have crumbling infrastructure. I have a 60-inch pipe that runs across 210 that is every day caving in on itself. Cree Drive, we were able to find funds to do some stormwater management and improve living conditions on Cree Drive, which is one of the biggest streets in the town of Forest Heights. And I'm happy that we were able to use our resources and be able to do that. We have a lot of projects. We have a lot of streets, and we need as much as we can get to accomplish these things for our citizens.
I'm very familiar with your town, by the way, and that's why I was very happy to assist earlier. I'm just asking, what other avenues have you taken to deal with some of the infrastructure challenges that you have, and then how did you come up with this amount, more than double the impact dollars?
I'm going to chime in just a little bit here, but Senator Jackson, as you might know, the casino bill was passed in 2012 in a special session, and according to the regulation, Forest Heights should have been at the table at that point in receiving some local impact fund. But again, it was not until some 5 years later that they got to be a part, given the only municipality in that district. So they already about 5 or 10 years behind some of the other local impact areas who have been receiving like funds. So we basically are just trying to catch up, if you will.
I appreciate you getting to that point. And lastly, so you're requesting this perpetuity, right? This amount?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We move on to the next bill,
All right.
996.
923?
996.
996, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Franklin?
Yeah, bring up your folks.
All right. Again, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak a bit about 996. Senate Bill 996 seeks to increase the state unit procurement percentage of the total value of goods, supplies, services, and others from the Small Business Reserve Fund from 15% to 30%. Additionally, this bill mandates that the small business principal offices be located in the state of Maryland, and for the state to establish guidelines around the program at least 5 years in advance. With me this afternoon is my former colleague from the county council. We sponsor many bills together, and we are here again as a team asking for your support to really reach out to the small business community and provide a little helping hand and increasing the percentage, which we will consider a win-win for the businesses and those who are on the receiving end. And on the county council, Councilmember Franklin has been sort of the lead person when we needed help and assistance dealing with small businesses. And today he's here again, and he's going to speak a little bit more about some of the specifics of the bill and be around for questions. All right.
Thank you, and good afternoon, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Mel Franklin, a member of the Prince George's County Council, council member at large, representing the nearly 1 million residents who live in Prince George's County. So great to see so many familiar faces, and it's great to feel a little bit of normalcy back in our everyday business. I want to thank Senator Patterson for leading the charge on this legislation, as well as in the House, Delegate Barnes for cross-filing this bill. You have my written testimony. I won't recount it all here. I'll just hit a couple of highlights. This legislation is really focused on uplifting our small and minority business community. As you all know, the small business community in Maryland was hit very hard, disproportionately hard, actually, by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we also know that Maryland is blessed to have a very diverse small business community. According to the Governor's Office on Small, Minority, and Women in Business Affairs, our small business community is 70% minority-owned and women-owned. So we are fortunate in that when we help and uplift our small businesses, we're also uplifting and empowering our minority and women-owned business community. That's one of the big reasons for the legislation proposing to require businesses to be based in Maryland in order to benefit from the Small Business Reserve Program, to ensure that the businesses that are being utilized are reflective of the diversity of our great state. Furthermore, to help grow our state's commercial tax base, as well as create more jobs here in the state of Maryland, leveraging those dollars so they circulate in our state. I will also like to note that I believe our current standard of 15% is too low, as well as our enforcement is too lax. First, Maryland's small businesses comprise almost half of all of the jobs in the state of Maryland. Almost half, though our small business reserve is only set at 15%. Furthermore, we have a 29% goal for MBE utilization in the state. All of our MBE certified companies have to also meet the small business size test, so they're also small businesses as well. Thus, increasing our standard and doing better with enforcing that standard will also help us better achieve our minority and women-owned business goals as well. As you all know, our minority and women-owned business goals are not hard caps because they are race and gender conscious. However, because our small business standard is race neutral and gender neutral, it can actually be a hard requirement that agencies have to meet if we strengthen our enforcement. Which brings me to the last point. We must really strengthen reporting and enforcement of our supplier diversity standards. I think is that my bell? I'll wrap up and just say that I want to encourage your favorable report for SB 996. Thank you so much, and I'm here for questions.
Thank you.
We have with us here Carrie McIntyre, who is an employee with Warren Builds, one of our African-American owned businesses in Prince George's County.
Thank you very much, sir. I'd like to thank Senator Patterson and our friend Councilman Mel Franklin for the opportunity to come speak with you today. That's not something a construction company gets to do every day. I do represent Warren Builds, which is a county-based small business and minority business enterprise, and also a state-certified MDOT minority business enterprise, and we're here today to speak in favor of the bill. We're a small business, but our vision is to grow into a great, mid-sized or larger, regionally successful general construction prime contractor. While not the only tool in the small business toolkit, the SBR program is an important one. It helps generate revenue, of course, but more strategically, it helps businesses like ours develop capability and capacity. Maryland's 4 decades old minority business enterprise program was created to reverse decades of discrimination and underutilization for minority-owned businesses in state procurement, but also it was intended to make those businesses more successful in competing in both government and commercial markets. In 2004, when the General Assembly created the SBR program, it was done for much the same reasons. Simply put, encouraging the growth of small businesses is, for Maryland, good business. And while the SBR program is race neutral, it is of course a vital way to also address historic market disadvantages for minority-owned businesses. As Councilman Franklin observed, 7 in 10 Maryland small businesses are minority-owned and women-owned. And that's unsurprising in a state where more than half of the population is, by U.S. Census definition, minority. It should then be clear that in a state that is majority minority, helping minority-owned and women-owned small businesses is also just good business. One important issue here, particularly for a firm like Warren Builds, is the difference between being a prime contractor and a subcontractor. It's particularly significant in the construction sector where we compete. And the data indicate that we have a long way to go. According to the report of the Governor's Office on Small, Minority, and Women Business Affairs, in fiscal year 20, just 7% of the state's $1.2 billion in prime construction contract awards went to minority prime contractors. And these numbers are even more significant than the gross numbers indicate. Construction prime contractors tend to be much larger and more broadly capable firms than specialty subcontractors. They employ more people. They generate more revenue and pay more taxes. They are better postured to withstand economic downturns. There are significant Thank you. We're in favor of the bill, subject to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, colleague, for the bill. It's good to see Councilmember Franklin, who's just not been a spokesperson on behalf of small and minority and local businesses, but has been a true champion. And Mr. Councilmember, I thank you and the panel for your testimony. I just wanted to get a sense, because we did get a letter from our Department of General Services expressing concern about the pool of available small and minority businesses, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to just speak to that, knowing you're knowledgeable about the just vast number of minority businesses that are available to do work on these contracts.
Sure, and that's not a unique criticism when we talk about small business and minority business-related legislation. Usually it's a function of having the opportunity, because oftentimes the ability to expand as a small or minority-owned business is limited by the fact that you haven't had the opportunity, and so it forms the basis as to why you don't get future opportunities, so it becomes a chicken versus egg thing. We do have a significant small business community. As mentioned, almost half the jobs in the state of Maryland are housed with small businesses. I would just ask the analysts who provided that information for more data on why they don't think we have the capacity. I think we have much more than 15% capacity, and certainly think that we can hit the numbers that the legislation proposes if we give our small and minority businesses the opportunity.
Thank you very much. And so I would just say in response that your response is, if given the chance, where there doesn't exist capacity, we can grow capacity based on those businesses that are willing and able to do the work.
And there's a substantial amount of capacity that gets underestimated, and in large part is driven by the opportunity. So if I'm a small business, and Mr. McIntyre can speak to this more specifically, I'm going to hire up based on the opportunities that I forecast. And so I'm not going to, unlike a larger company that can maintain a large workforce constantly, as a smaller business, they may have to retain independent contractors or 1099 employees on an as-needed basis. And so the availability of those contracting opportunities and the predictability of those opportunities is going to allow a smaller business to be able to plan for that, as well as retain the kind of capacity they'll need going forward. And Mr. McIntyre, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I do, and thank you, Councilman. First of all, I'd like to point the committee to a published State of Maryland disparity study, 2017, which found that availability of minority-owned firms was significantly undercounted in the Maryland marketplace. It's a large, ponderous report, but you can do a quick search through the document and you can find that. Also, the chicken and egg problem is real. There's a well, I don't know what age everybody here is, but I remember from my youth, I'm an old soldier, there was a commercial that said, you can't get a job, son, because you have no experience. And the military said, we don't ask for experience, we give it. It was a self-fulfilling loop. You can't get a job because you don't have experience, and you can't get experience because you don't have a job. But the military was a way that you could do that. The Small Business Reserve is a similar tool. It functions in the same way because small businesses compete for prime contracts against other small businesses. Competing as a prime contractor is a very significant hitch. There are structural problems with doing that as a small business, and time doesn't permit a full discussion of them here. But I will say that things in the construction industry, such as bonding capacity and experience requirements, are particularly onerous for small businesses. This program, by setting aside for prime contractors to compete against prime contractors, helps all small businesses, including veteran-owned small businesses, I might add. But because of the ownership dynamics, it particularly advantages and assists in providing opportunities for minority-owned and women-owned small businesses. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to welcome Councilman Franklin here. Councilman
you.
Franklin is in his third term.
Yes, sir.
2 of which he was my council member in District 9, and now he is a countywide official, always working for the small business folks. But I'm also familiar with Warren Bills, and you all do great work. So
Thank you, sir.
looking forward to working with you all going forward. And, you know, we have to keep small businesses in the forefront. So glad to see you all. Great
Thank you,
job,
Senator.
Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I just wanted to add the shout-outs to Councilman Franklin.
Thank you, Senator.
He was not my councilman until 3 years ago.
Right.
When he went at large, and so now he represents me as well, and I'm really pleased you're here and working on this issue as always. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Franklin,
appreciate
you've never been my councilman. But I'm pleased you're here. Pleased you're here.
Thank you.
Senator McCray?
Thank you so much.
I only did it because the chair piggybacked. So I wanted to piggyback on it. It's good to see you, brother.
It's a
You're not my
pleasure.
councilman. I'm all the way in Baltimore, but always good to see you.
Same here, man. Feelings mutual. I really appreciate
All
it.
right. Well, that concludes the hearing on this bill. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.